Kavar Prime was not a beautiful world, but it was alive. The skies were pale yellow, the air carried the smell of burning minerals, and the streets buzzed with activity. The port city sat on the edge of the great Eastern Sea, its massive landing, platforms stretching far over the water. Cargo drones hummed in the air, carrying crates between warehouses. Alien traders in long flowing robes shouted prices to passing customers. Workers in heavy exosuits moved machinery from one dock to another. It was an ordinary day or so, everyone believed. Word had spread over the last week that humans were coming. Not an army, not a fleet, just a single shuttle. The locals expected it to land quietly, perhaps deliver goods, perhaps collect rare minerals. For most citizens of Kavar Prime, humans were still a mystery. They had heard stories. Some called them dangerous, others called them unreliable allies. But most saw them as just another species trying to survive in the endless galaxy. The dockmaster, an old alien named Zurak, leaned against the control console in his observation tower. His scaled hands tapped lazily at the screens. The shuttle was scheduled to arrive at midday, and the radar showed nothing unusual. He had handled hundreds of arrivals before: cargo freighters, mining vessels, small patrol ships. A human shuttle was nothing special. At least, that was what he thought. Children played in the streets, their laughter echoing between the market stalls. Merchants arranged colorful fabrics under the sun. Musicians strummed their instruments at the plaza near Dock 12. Above it all, the yellow sky stretched clear and calm. It was a day that felt predictable, safe, almost boring. Then something strange appeared on the horizon. It was small at first, a dark speck against the sky. No one paid much attention. Perhaps it was an incoming freighter, or one of the local patrol ships returning from its daily route. But the speck grew larger and larger still. It was not moving like the ships they knew. It was slower, steadier, with a heavy presence, as if space itself was bending around it. Zurak frowned. He tapped his screen, bringing up the tracking feed. The object's speed was unusual, its approach pattern precise. He checked the schedule. There was no other ship listed for this time. His ridged brow furrowed. He zoomed the feed closer. The image sharpened. This was not a shuttle. The object was massive, with long, sharp lines and a hull darker than the void between stars. Even at a distance, the silhouette radiated power. The ship was coming in without broadcasting any greeting, no request for docking clearance. It simply approached, as if permission was unnecessary. Down below, some of the market-goers noticed the growing shadow in the sky. They stopped to stare. A murmur spread through the streets. "That's not a shuttle," someone whispered. Others laughed nervously, saying it was probably just a large freighter. But no freighter caused the air to tremble like that. No freighter made the ground hum under your feet before it even entered the atmosphere. The shadow grew darker, wider. The ship's size was now impossible to ignore. Children clutched their parents' hands. Vendors stopped calling out prices. All eyes turned upward. Zurak's console beeped sharply. The system had finally identified the incoming vessel. His heart skipped a beat when the name appeared on the display in bold. Human script, HSS Vengeance. Every spacer in the galaxy knew that name. It was not just a battleship, was the Battleship. A warship from Earth, feared by pirates, smugglers, and entire planetary governments. It was said to have ended 3 wars in a single year without losing a single battle. The story spoke of its armor thick enough to shrug off plasma fire, its weapons capable of shattering orbital stations with one shot. The very sight of it was enough to make entire fleets retreat. Zurak's hands shook. Why was it here? Why had no one warned them? This was not a trading vessel. This was not a diplomatic envoy. This was a weapon. The first shockwave hit as the vengeance pierced the upper atmosphere. The sound rolled through the city like distant thunder. Loose items on the docks rattled and fell. A second shockwave followed as the ship slowed, massive thrusters firing in controlled bursts. It was not descending toward the outer docking ring like most ships. No, it was heading straight for the central sky above the city. Crowds began to gather in the open areas. Some stood in awe, others in fear. The ship's hull reflected the pale sunlight in flashes of steel and shadow. Along its sides were rows of colossal cannons, each one the size of a cargo hauler. Glowing blue lines ran like veins across the armor, pulsing with an energy no one on Kavar Prime could identify. This is wrong, Zarek muttered to himself. His communicator crackled with messages from other dock officials, all asking the same question. Why is it here? The vengeance moved like a predator, slow, deliberate, confident. It did not need speed to intimidate. It let the city watch its approach, let them feel the weight of its presence. And in that moment, Kavar Prime realized something terrifying. This was no accident. The ship had come here for a reason. Zurak tore his eyes from the radar and looked out the observation window. The battleship's shadow now stretched across the entire port, swallowing the sunlit streets below. It felt as if the sky itself had turned black. He had seen warships before. He had seen destruction, but never had he felt this pressure. As if the air was thicker, as if every breath carried the taste of danger. The ship's massive engines slowed, and for a moment everything went silent. And then a deep metallic hum filled the air, a sound like the growl of a giant beast. The vengeance had arrived. The city of Kavar Prime had fallen silent. The hum of the marketplace, the clang of machinery, even the shouts of merchants had faded into nothing. All that remained was the deep vibration in the air, a constant reminder that something massive was above them. From the streets, the ship looked impossibly large. Its outlines stretched from one horizon to the other, blocking the pale yellow sun. The alien buildings, once tall and proud, now looked like toys under its shadow. Its hull was a dark, burnished metal black in some places, silver where the light caught it, covered in glowing blue lines that pulsed like the heartbeat of some great beast. Children clung to their parents, eyes wide. The elders, who remembered old wars, lowered their heads in fear. Every alien instinct told them that this was not a visit. This was a display up in the observation tower. Dockmaster Zarek could not tear his eyes from the console. The radar was useless. Now so large was the vessel that the sensors could not map it entirely. He switched to the high magnification lens, and the details of the ship came into sharp focus. Along each side were rows of colossal cannons, their barrels thick enough to fit a transport shuttle inside. Between them were strange pods that pulsed with blue light. Zarek had seen plasma turrets, missile bays, even planetary bombardment cannons in his time. But whatever those pods were, they looked worse. He shivered. A faint vibration traveled through the tower's steel floor. The vengeance was descending. The alien comms network was alive with panic. Dockmaster, confirm identity. It's the HSS Vengeance. What is it doing here? Evacuate the port immediately. But there was no evacuation. No one moved. The city was frozen, as if running might provoke the great beast in the sky. The ship's massive engines glowed a deep orange now, venting controlled bursts of energy as it slowed. No unnecessary movement. Every action was precise, like a predator, circling its prey as it passed directly over the main plaza. The citizens below could finally see the full scale. The underside was a maze of armored plating and weapon housings, each one bristling with sensors and rotating turrets. Smaller shapes darted across the whole, maintenance drones, no larger than a hovercar, scurrying along to check and repair. Systems? Even those drones were heavily armored, built for war. Then came the sound. It began as a low rumble, deep in the bones, more felt than heard. Slowly, it rose into a steady, metallic hum that vibrated the very air. It was not the engine, it was something else. A resonance that seemed to come from the ship's core, as though the Vengeance itself was alive. The aliens in the plaza covered their ears, but the sound was inside their chests. A reminder that the warship's power reached into more than just physical space. Zorak's eyes widened as his console lit up with an incoming transmission. The signal override was complete. Every COM channel in the city now belonged to the ship. No one could block it. No one could ignore it. A voice came through, deep and calm, with the unmistakable accent of a human commander. "This is Captain Arlen, Rourke of the HSS Vengeance. Citizens of Kavar Prime, remain calm. You are not under attack." The pause after that single word yet sent shivers through the city. Rourke continued, his tone even, but each word carrying the weight of authority. "We have come for answers. 3 days ago, a human colony on Mistral 4 was destroyed. The evidence leads here. Someone on your world is responsible. I will have the truth." In the plaza, whispers broke out. Some denied it immediately. Kavar Prime was a trading hub, not a war front. Others exchanged nervous glances, remembering quiet rumors of smugglers and mercenaries who had passed through recently. Zorak swallowed hard. He had no part in any crime. But the arrival of the Vengeance made one thing clear. Innocence would not protect them if the humans decided otherwise. The ship shifted in the air, rotating slightly to face the main starport. This movement alone sent gusts of wind racing through the city, scattering market stalls and toppling signs. Its engines pulsed once, and every light in the city flickered. From deep within the battleship, a set of massive panels began to open. Gas hissed into the cold air as enormous weapon mounts slid into view cannons taller than any building in the port, gleaming under the alien sun. But they did not fire. Instead, they sat poised, ready, as if to remind the city that they could end it all in an instant. And then, in one of the most unnerving displays, smaller ships detached from the battleship's underbelly. These were dropships, sleek and black, with angular designs that made them look more like weapons than transports. They moved with mechanical precision, fanning out over the city like watchful hawks. The citizens stared upward in silence. The dropships carried no banners, no markings, the same glowing blue lines that ran along the Vengeance's hull. Each one carried soldiers. Human soldiers. Rourke's voice returned over the coms, his tone colder now. "I will speak to your leaders. They have 10 minutes to meet me in the Grand Hall. If they do not, I will assume they are hiding the guilty." The transmission cut, leaving only the sound of the warship's engines in the air. Zorak felt the weight of the moment. Pressing on him, the leaders of Kavar Prime were not fast thinkers, and 10 minutes was no time at all. But this was not a negotiation. This was an order above. The vengeance floated like an executioner's blade, ready to fall, and in that instant, everyone in Cave R Prime understood something they had never truly believed before. Humans did not. Bluff. The air in Kavar Prime felt heavy, as if the atmosphere itself had thickened under the weight of the warship above. The sound of the Vengeance's engines was steady now, a low, constant hum that sank into the bones of everyone who heard it. No one spoke loudly. No one dared. From the marketplace to the highest observation tower, the people of the city waited. They waited to see what the humans would do next. They waited to see if their leaders would answer the summons. They waited to see if they would live through the day. In the grand hall, the ruling council gathered in haste. 11 alien figures sat around a curved table, their faces pale or tense. Most had never even spoken to a human before, and now they were told to meet the commander of the most feared warship in the galaxy, Counselor Varen. A tall alien with silver scales slammed his palm against the table. This is madness. We have no proof that anyone here attacked the humans' colony. Proof or not, replied Counselor Kareth, his voice low, that ship is not here for discussion. It is here for judgment. Outside the hall, the dropships moved through the skies, circling the city in slow, deliberate paths. Their movements were like predators marking territory. Every time one passed overhead, people ducked instinctively, as if the very act of being seen might bring punishment. On the ground, the human soldiers began to appear. They stepped out of the dropships in perfect formation, their armor matte, black with thin strips of glowing blue along the shoulders and helmets. Their faces were hidden behind mirrored visors, reflecting the fearful stares of the aliens who watched them from doorways and alleys. They moved with precision, no wasted motion, no hesitation. Each soldier carried a weapon unlike anything the city had seen before, sleek, compact, and deadly. Some of the aliens whispered that they had seen these weapons used before, on worlds that no longer existed. The soldiers didn't speak to the civilians. They didn't shout orders or make threats. They simply stood watch in strategic positions, blocking key streets and intersections. Their silent presence saying more than any words could. From his observation tower, Dockmaster Zurak watched the humans move. It was like watching a machine come to life, a machine made of flesh, steel, and perfect coordination. He had seen military patrols before, but nothing like this. These soldiers didn't seem tense or nervous. They moved like they already controlled the city. And perhaps they did. In the grand hall, the council's argument grew louder. We must refuse them, Varen insisted. If we bow now, we will bow forever. Counselor Kareth shook his head. If we refuse them, there will be no forever, only fire. The debate ended not because they reached a decision, but because the choice was taken from them. The heavy doors to the hall swung open with a metallic groan. In stepped 3 human soldiers, their boots striking the polished floor with measured force. Behind them was a tall man in a dark blue uniform, the insignia of a captain gleaming on his chest. His presence was like gravity. Every eye in the room was drawn to him, and every conversation died instantly. Captain Arlen Rourke scanned the room without a word. His gaze was cold, calculating. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. Which of you will answer for Mistral 4? The council members exchanged nervous glances. None spoke. Rourke stepped forward, his boots clicking against the floor. Do not waste my time. 3 days ago, a human colony burned. The attack was traced here. My orders are clear. Find the guilty or level the city. Gasps filled the room. Councillor Verin found his courage, standing to meet the human's gaze. We had no part in this. We are traders, not warriors. Rourke didn't blink. Then give me the ones who are. Silence again. No one moved. Rourke turned slightly, gesturing to one of his soldiers. The man tapped the side of his helmet, and a holographic display flickered into the air between them. Grainy footage at Kavar Prime Cargo Bay, its shadows hiding figures loading crates of stolen human tech into a freighter. The ship's registry was clearly marked as belonging to Kavar Prime. The council stared in shock. Some recognized the men in the footage. Others simply looked away, ashamed. "You will give them to me," Rourke said, "or I will take them." Myself, outside, the city's people could feel the tension rising, even without hearing the words. The human soldiers had shifted their stance, gripping their weapons just a little tighter. The vengeance loomed above like a silent executioner, its weapons still aimed downward. In the marketplace, a small group of children watched the warship with wide eyes. One whispered to the other, "It's bigger than our whole city." Back in the council chamber, Councillor Careth finally spoke. We will give you the names." Rourke nodded once, sharply. "You have 1 hour." Without another word, he turned and left the chamber, his soldiers falling into perfect step behind him. The heavy doors shut, leaving the council in stunned silence. The moment Rourke stepped outside, a comm signal flashed across his visor. His second-in-command's voice came through. "Sir, the ship's sensors have locked onto the targets." Orders. Rourke's eyes narrowed. "Stand by. If the council doesn't hand them over, we take them." The city, still holding its breath, waited to see if that hour would end in peace or in fire. The 1 hour given by Captain Arlen. Rourke passed slower than any hour in Kavar Prime's history. From the tallest tower to the smallest market stall, the city waited under the shadow of the HSS Vengeance. Every passing minute seemed to make the ship above them feel heavier, as though its presence was pressing down on the planet itself. In the Grand Hall, the ruling council worked in silence now. The argument from earlier had vanished, replaced by grim determination. A data file glowed in the center of the table, a list of names, locations, and affiliations. These were the individuals responsible for aiding the attack on Mistral. Some were smugglers, others mercenaries, and at least one was a member of the council itself. Councillor Careth spoke quietly, his voice almost breaking. "They will not forgive us for this." Councillor Varen's silver-scaled face was pale now. "Perhaps, but if we do nothing, there will be no one left to forgive." At exactly the 60th minute, the massive doors to the Grand Hall opened. Once again, Captain Rourke entered with the same steady stride as before, his soldiers flanking him in perfect formation. "Do you have them?" he asked. Careth stepped forward, holding the data file. "Here, all the names, all their locations, and proof." Rourke took the file without comment, glancing briefly at the list. His expression did not change, but there was a faint tightening round his eyes. He handed the file to his nearest soldier. "Transmit to the ship. Begin retrieval." The soldier tapped his helmet, sending the data to the Vengeance. Outside, the city watched as the dropships moved with sudden purpose. They broke formation, streaking toward different sectors of Kavar Prime like hunting hawks. Their engines roared low over the streets, scattering market stalls and shaking dust from the walls of old buildings. from the observation tower, followed their paths. Each dropship descended with surgical precision, landing exactly where the targets were hiding. Human soldiers poured out swift, silent, and unstoppable. In one sector, they surrounded a warehouse before the smugglers inside even knew they were there. The doors were blown open in a controlled detonation, and the humans swept in. There were no long firefights, no wild chases, just efficient, overwhelming force. In less than 2 minutes, the smugglers were dragged out in restraints, their weapons confiscated. In another part of the city, a mercenary leader tried to run. He darted through alleys, leaping over crates, shoving past civilians. But the humans were faster. A drone from the Vengeance tracked him from above, sending his location to ground units. Within seconds, he was pinned against a wall by a soldier in black armor. His weapon kicked away, his hands bound. And then there was the most shocking arrest. The council member, Councillor Drevel, a quiet and respected figure, had secretly been trading weapons with pirates for years. He sat in his private chamber when the soldiers came, sipping a glass of pale wine. He did not resist. He simply looked up and said, "I wondered when you'd find me." The soldiers took him without a word. Back in the grand hall, Rourke stood near the great window, watching his forces work. The Vengeance loomed above, its presence constant, its weapons still aimed at the city. Kareth approached cautiously. You could have destroyed us without a word. Why didn't you?" Rourke's gaze stayed on the city. Because vengeance without precision is chaos, and humanity does not waste its fire on the innocent. Kareth frowned. "You call this mercy?" Rourke turned to face him fully now. His eyes were hard, but not cruel. "I call it balance. We do not start wars without reason. But when you attack one of our own, we will end it." The sound of dropship engines returning filled the air. One by one, the ships docked back into the belly of the Vengeance, carrying the captured culprits. The soldiers moved with the same perfect precision they had shown on arrival, their mission complete. From the streets below, the aliens watched in silence. No one cheered, no one shouted. They simply stared, their expressions a mix of fear, respect, and awe. Zurak leaned against his console, exhaling a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The city was still standing. The warship hadn't fired a single shot at them. And yet, Kavar Prime would never be the same again. Rourke gave the council one last look. This could have ended differently. Remember that without waiting for a reply, he turned and left. His soldiers followed, their boots striking the floor in unison. Minutes later, the Vengeance's engines roared to full power. The ship began to rise, its shadow lifting from the city like a dark cloud moving away. The sunlight returned, but it felt pale compared to the presence that had just left. As the battleship broke through the upper atmosphere, Zurak whispered to himself, "They came for answers," and left a warning. But deep inside, everyone knew the truth. This had not been a warning, it had been a demonstration, and the galaxy would remember it. Asterisk, the shadow of the HSS Vengeance was gone from the streets of Kavar Prime. But the memory of it clung to the city like a second skin. The pale yellow sunlight returned, washing over the market stalls, rooftops, and docks, but it felt weaker, as if the day itself had been humbled. From the plaza to the high towers, people stood in silence, watching the black warship climb higher into the sky. Its engines glowed like small suns, leaving waves of heat in their wake. There was no victory cheer, no relief, only quiet awe. Dockmaster Zurak remained at his post in the observation tower, His scaled hands rested against the cold metal of the console as he tracked the ship's ascent. The radar showed the Vengeance climbing through the atmosphere at a measured pace, almost leisurely, as if it was in no rush to leave. Zurich realized why it wasn't retreating. It was making sure everyone below saw it leave. The final part of its message in the streets. Alien parents crouched down to speak to their children in low voices. Some told them never to cross paths with humans. Others told them that humans were protectors, if only you stayed on their side. But no matter. The words, the tone was the same. Respect mixed with fear. Up in the grand hall, the council sat in uneasy quiet. The space felt larger now, emptier without the looming presence of Captain Arlen Rourke and his soldiers. The data files had been taken, the guilty removed, and the humans had left without firing a single shot. And yet, the council knew they had been judged by a power greater than any court or senate in the galaxy. Councillor Carith spoke first, breaking the silence. "We survived today." Councillor Varen's silver scales shimmered faintly in the filtered sunlight. "Yes, but survival was given to us, not earned. That is, worse." The others didn't answer. There was nothing to say. The truth was plain. Kavar Prime's fate had been in human hands, and the humans had decided to spare them, outside. The dropships that had carried soldiers earlier were now docking back into the belly of the Vengeance. From this distance, they looked like small insects returning to the shell of a giant beast. The ship's glowing blue lines pulsed slower now, as though its heartbeat was calming. But every eye that looked upward knew that this calm was not weakness. It was restraint. High above the city, the Vengeance hovered one last time, its shadow stretching far across the sea. The comm systems crackled, and for a moment the entire city held its breath. Then the voice of Captain Rourke came through and out loud, but clear enough for every citizen to hear. "Kavar Prime, today we took only those who brought war to our people. Let this be the last time." No threat followed, no roar of weapons. The channel went silent. Zurich found himself leaning closer to the window as the warship's thrusters fired in unison. The Vengeance rose faster now, passing through the thin upper clouds, its dark shape fading against the pale sky. And then, with a flash brighter than the sun, it jumped to faster than light speed and was gone. The silence left behind felt strange, too big, too empty. The streets slowly began to stir again. Merchants picked up fallen stalls. Children began to whisper and ask questions. Workers returned to the docks, though they moved with less noise than before, as if afraid the sound might call the humans back in the weeks that followed. Stories of the day spread far beyond Kavar Prime. Traders carried tales to other worlds, of the giant black warship, the human soldiers, the calm but unshakable voice of its captain. In the far reaches of the galaxy, alien fleets whispered the name Vengeance with a mix of dread and admiration. On worlds that had never feared humanity before, caution began to grow. Some called the humans dangerous. Others called them the galaxy's necessary shield. But all agreed on one thing: when humanity came for you, they did not come halfway. Back in his tower, Zurich couldn't shake the image of the ship's slow approach. It was not the weapons that haunted him, nor the size of the battleship. It was the certainty in its movement, the absolute control. It was the knowledge that if the humans had wanted Kavar Prime gone, they could have done it before the city even realized they were under attack. Instead, they had chosen to act with precision. That, Zurich thought, was the most frightening thing of all. Months later, when a small human shuttle finally did arrive for trade, the docking crews worked in complete silence. There was no joking, no lazy delays. Every worker knew, no matter how small the ship, you treated it with the same respect as the Vengeance. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of Kavar Prime's skies, Captain Arlen Rourke stood on the bridge of his ship, staring into the starfield. His mission log for Mistral 4 was marked complete. The culprits would face human justice, and the message had been sent to the galaxy. The Vengeance's engines rumbled softly in the background. The captain allowed himself a rare smile, not of triumph, but of satisfaction. The galaxy would think twice before provoking humanity again.